Welcome into the Echo Sportscast Spotlight interview. I'm Ben Sargent.
I'm Jackson Bull.
And today we are pleased to be joined by the Nipissing Lakers lacrosse head coach, Jason Rudge. Jason, welcome into the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
So you guys kicked off your season on last Sunday, so this is coming out Friday. So almost a week ago against the Guelph Gryphons in an extremely tight 14-12 victory. And there was some, I know on the email threads that we had as we were setting up this interview, there was a couple of interesting pieces of that. So why don't you start off by telling us why this was such a big win for the program?
Well, first of all, it's only our second ever victory against Guelph. They are, one of the powerhouses in the league that, they went undefeated last year in the regular season, 10-0. But the biggest one this year, and I think kind of spearheaded our guys and got our guys excited, is they were pre-ranked 3 going into the season, and they the league pre-ranked us 12th. So to take down the 3rd ranked team in the first game of the season really sets a tone for what we were able to put together this year and where we want to be.
And that's 12th out of how many total?
14.
14, okay.
14 teams.
So is this, maybe tell us a little bit about the history of the program itself. How long has the program been going on for? How long have you been there? Maybe some of the successes that you guys have or are hoping to have?
Yeah, so I've been there. I think this is my 8th season. Again, COVID puts a wrinkle on my memory and brain and all that stuff. But I joined the team halfway through the 2017 season. Kind of been with them ever since. We've had some very positive seasons where we make it to championship weekend. I think we've been there 3 times. One year we hosted. And then unfortunately we had a big graduating class a couple years ago and our numbers got lower. We had a 1-9 season. And then last year we were 5-5, slowly getting back up to where we want to be, right? With a small school, but a powerful program.
I was looking at the scheduling, and it looks like 5 home games in September and then 5 away games as we bleed into October. I was just wondering, with the short season, how that affects the players during practice. Like, how much emphasis is there that we have limited practices, we have limited time together? How does that look?
Yeah, it definitely makes it challenging, for sure. We're lucky that a lot of the guys come in from playing summer lacrosse, wherever they are, senior, junior, mostly box lacrosse coming in, so they're ready. But we get together late August, 3 weeks together, and then our first game, and we just got to kind of hit the road running. And the biggest thing is I always emphasize with them is that we got to take care of our bodies. We got to be athletes. The team that in a 10-game season, the team that can stay the healthiest is usually the one that prevails at the end, and that's our goal, right?
Do you guys have multi-sport athletes at all? Like, does anybody who play in lacrosse also play soccer and other programs? Maybe not that overlap with each other, but other programs in the university?
No, but we have had athletes that played other sports join us. We've had a guy that came to school to play basketball and just didn't work out for him. He joined the lacrosse team. We had a cross-country runner join our team. But usually it's pretty hard just due to schedules, right? We've had a couple hockey guys that wanted to do both, but just the overlapping in the schedule makes it hard for them to commit to either sport. So no.
Yeah, so that's a fantastic answer. Getting into the specifics of lacrosse, I know it's a very physical sport. I would say most similar to hockey. Would that be correct, or more similar to football in the physicality level?
Physicality for sure, probably hockey. There's lots of similarities to basketball as well, just with positioning and footwork, more in the box game than the field game, which are totally 2 different sports, but still lacrosse, and all our athletes play both. They play field lacrosse for us at school, but most of them play, junior box lacrosse anywhere across Canada, depending on where their home is.
And the box lacrosse is the indoor version of the lacrosse? Awesome.
Yep, that's the indoor.
What are the differences? Because I remember when I was young, you'd watch like the NLL, so the lacrosse league. The Toronto Rock were I guess our closest team for us. And I remember watching some of those games, and as you were saying, Jackson, they're usually in an arena. How is that different from field lacrosse? Is it smaller? Is there different strategies that people play?
Yeah, there's definitely less players on the floor in box lacrosse, as it's 6v6, right? 5 runners and a goalie. In field lacrosse, we're 10v10, where it is 9 runners and 1 goalie. But when you bring it into an arena with boards and you're getting the bounce and the rebounds, smaller nets, goalies have bigger equipment on. So it's very similar, but at the same point, it's very different. Just as a different style of game, you're not really allowed to cross check in field lacrosse, but in box lacrosse you can. So like most people will think lacrosse and they'll think the traditional indoor game, which is a lot tougher. Cross checks, a lot of pounding. It's super quick as you have 30-second shot clock. Field lacrosse is more what they call the gentleman sport, but it's still super tough. You got guys out there with 6-foot long sticks, the defenders that are using them to their advantage. I'd put it that way, and try to steal the ball or take the ball with some hard slashes and things like that. So
it's almost looking at it like hockey versus soccer in a way, because I'm a big soccer person. I watch a lot of Premier League and stuff, and people, I know there's kind of the joke that they just fall on the floor and they fake injuries. It's an incredibly physical sport. If you actually watch, especially in the Premier League where it is very, very physical, people are getting like stepped on and like steel cleats, and they're getting their ankles taken out and their knees taken out, and it's bad. Like, it's like extremely physical. And when I was watching the game, your home opener against Guelph, it was a pretty physical affair, but the amount of people and space that you have and the way people were kind of, I think tactically were set up, it reminded me a lot of soccer. Do you think that's a fair comparison?
yeah, definitely spacing is key on field lacrosse. You're on a little bit smaller than a soccer field or a soccer pitch. But spacing's key, just to give you that space as you want to be an athlete and use that space to your advantage to try to get to the net, to create openings for your teammates, and things like that. So there is definitely spacing similarities to soccer, but we score a lot more goals.
And that place was packed. Like, when I went there, I could barely hit a spot. There were so many people out there. There were people across on the fence, across from where I don't know if it's the highway, but where the road coming into the university is. People were all over the place. And lacrosse is an interesting sport because it's not one of the big four. It's not one of the main sports I think people necessarily think of in traditional pop culture or popular sports. And is this? Do you find that you have a really strong showing in terms of people coming out and supporting your team?
Yeah, like our families travel well. Like a lot of fans there were from Guelph. A lot of fans were our families. But it's an exciting sport, right? We scored 14-12. That's 26 goals in 60 minutes. So there's lots of action. There's in that game, there's a goal every 2 minutes, right? So it's not like there's the entertainment value of the sport, the speed of the sport, the athleticism, the hitting, attracts a lot of people that are new to the sport. Especially over the last few years, we've always had a pretty competitive team. Our guys are well respected at the school. They've got a lot of family and friends that want to come out and support them. So we've generally, over the last few years, have grown a pretty good following. We even get kids from, down where I live in Huntsville, an hour and 20 minutes away. That's a very big lacrosse community that come up to support as well. It's one of those things. It's a high level, the University of Lacrosse. So it's hard to find that everywhere. And being, our northern location, people will travel to watch a good game, right? And support their family and friends.
Absolutely. That place was rock. And I saw at least one goal that you scored. I think it was near the end of the first quarter. And everybody was going nuts. And then when I left near the end of the second quarter, there was another goal. And I'm like, I missed it, because I heard everybody, you got the horns going on and everything like that. So it was, and it's such a nice field too up there, because it's all artificial turf. It's a really, really nice field. Everything is just the lines, how it is. Because I was also at Omichel for the Algonquin senior game, and I'm just impressed at when you look at some of the public fields that are available, they're kind of a little beaten down, or they're not maybe taking the care of the best. But there are some facilities that are really pristine here in North Bay.
Yeah, we're lucky, brand new, turf field, I think 4 or 5 years ago, and they do a great job up there of taking care of it. And we just share it. We're lucky we share it just with the two soccer teams. Um, but it doesn't get as much use as some of those community fields. Well, which actually helps it stay in the condition that it is, and the respect, and the staff at the school there take amazing care of it, and we're pretty lucky, and a lot of the schools that travel up here, even Guelph on the weekend, talking to their coach there, he's like, "You guys got an A1 facility. It's always awesome to come up here."
Do you notice a difference between turf and grass when it comes to lacrosse? Because I know some sports like soccer or baseball or these different grass-based sports, a lot of people don't like the turf, but for like football, I know a lot of people don't really care. What about lacrosse? Is that something that you notice? Do you get more banged up in your joints, or do you find not a big difference?
Yeah, there's good and bad to it, right? If you have a great grass pitch, it's awesome to play on, right? You're going to have the athletes are going to be able to have less injury, wear and tear on their body. But due to where we are in the climate that we play in, that you almost have to have turf up here nowadays. And most of these guys have grown up playing on turf, so they're used to it. There's good and bad to both, but I think you have to be, warm weather 365 to have a really nice grass field, just due to the condition. And we've had freeze out rainstorms that we've had to move games down to Huntsville, just due to the fact of like the weather that we're going to get late in our season. And if we host, hopefully we host a home game, that'll be the first weekend in November, home playoff game. So you never know what you're going to get in North Bay in the beginning of November and of October.
And how do the playoffs work for you guys? Is it a single elimination? Is it multiple games?
Yep. So single elimination. Top six teams go in. One plays six, 2, 5, and 4. 3 versus 4, and the top seed 3 host that game. So you want to be one of the top 3 to get the home rights, and then the 3 winners of that game go to the championship weekend, which this year's held in Brampton. And obviously that's our goal going in, is to be at championship weekend.
That's awesome. You mentioned that you had a 5-5 record last season. Was that enough to get you to the top 6? Like, do your boys have that playoff experience coming into this year?
Yeah, we regularly make the playoffs. Last year, unfortunately, we finished 4th, and last year's playoffs were a little bit different. As there was a host team that got into championship weekend, so only 5 teams actually made the playoffs last year, and we actually ran into our first round of playoffs. We had to travel to Western, and Western won the whole thing last year. So we lost that first playoff game. With that 5-5 record, did land us in 4th place last year. So it was good enough to be in the playoffs, but we just ran into a tough opponent that first game.
That's awesome. I'm glad to hear that you guys have that experience and you'll are hungry going into this season. I have a question about personnel as well, player specific. I saw that OUA or Nipissing's MVP of the week was Jason Knox from your team, also from Huntsville that you mentioned you were from. What's that connection like with you and him, and what's his connection with the team?
Yeah, so Jason's a new recruit this year. He's coming into Nipissing as an education student. I started coaching Jason when he was 13 years old here in Huntsville, before he left to go away to school down south, and he actually played his most of his college career at Hobart and Ohio State. And he also plays, in the NLL for the Halifax Thunderbirds. So he's definitely one of the guys that I've coached him. Great friend of mine, family friends, but I was able to convince him that, teaching was where he should be, and he should come to Nipissing to take that teaching degree and join our team. So he was excited from that opportunity, and came came out his first game with 7 goals and 2 assists is a pretty good start and a welcome to the league.
So did you say he played in the NLL?
So he currently plays in the NLL.
Oh, wow. Because one of the things I wanted to ask about was the road, I guess, for players to try to do this professionally. So we see this a lot in whether it's basketball or football or hockey or whatever, right? And I was really curious about lacrosse because it feels like it's a kind of a CFL situation where you're probably not making enough revenue or enough money to be able to do this full time as your own job. But maybe you can speak a little bit to the opportunities post secondary.
Yeah, so post secondary, obviously there's opportunities. Clufla is a great league. A lot of our top end athletes, and I'm lucky enough. I coached Team Ontario for years, and I currently coach with the Team Canada development as we develop players for the World Championships and the the actual Team Canada teams. And a lot of those players will go down NCAA route, play their college ball down there. Just different atmosphere down there, just different talent. But a lot of the guys will also just play junior box lacrosse, and that's usually where they'll get drafted into the NLL right from there, or college lacrosse in the NCAA. But we have 2 on our roster right now, 2 current NLL players. We've had a few NLL players in the past that come to our school and got drafted while they're doing their undergrad. It's definitely a sport that is growing. Like I mentioned to you guys, we're going to be in the LA 28 Olympics, which is going to bring another whole new viewing audience to the sport. And that would be a new sport that develops kind of like what rugby did with rugby sevens. We have sixes. So it's almost a full on field and an outdoor that have come together in sixes. So it's played outdoors, but with 6-on-6. But the guys, there is a pro field lacrosse league as well, the PLL. So we do have in our sport a lot of athletes that will play their summer ball that's just finishing up in the PLL, and then they'll play their winter ball, which is the NLL, and be able to be a full-time pro athlete. But that's pretty rare for guys to be able to make a living fully on lacrosse, but it's changing. Every year there's more guys doing it, which is exciting for our sport and bringing more eyes to our sport, and continue to grow at the younger ages.
And how does that work if like Jason's playing the NLL, but he's also at school? Obviously there's a lot of travel and things that happen. Is that not something they don't clash together or anything like that?
Not really, because the NLL is a weekend based league, so all their games are usually Saturdays or Sundays or Friday nights. So he would finish up his since he's an education student, he'll mostly finish up his placement, and then head to the airport and get on a plane. And if he's flying to Halifax, where he's his home center, or if he's flying to another center to play, that's how they do it. And in our league, you can't play pro field lacrosse and play in the Clufla, but you can play pro box lacrosse. And there's multiple NLL guys that are in our league.
That's super cool. That'd be like having, well, I don't know if like it's probably not like an NHL person, but like an ECHL player or something playing on like the Lakers men's team.
Yeah.
Or like a PHL player maybe on the women's team. That's insane.
Yeah, an OHLer playing with his high school while he's there in grade 11 and 12.
Yeah. It's pretty great. But he's just one of the regular guys. Him and Connor's the other guy that plays for Vancouver. He was our goalie in the game on Sunday. They're just regular guys out there. It's pretty cool, and then they get to support them in their winter season and cheer them on too, as teammates as well as fans.
I have a goalie question, because goalies that's got to be like the hardest position to play, because you're facing this ball that's coming at you at who knows how much miles per hour. I know that the goalies, especially in the NLL, they tend to be like very big in comparison to their net. But when you guys are playing, like they're not really wearing like gear. So I guess how does being a goalie play, like for people who aren't familiar with the sport?
Yeah, most goalies, most people will recognize a goalie as the big guy, the marshmallow man in the small little net in indoor or box lacrosse, right where there's not much space to shoot. But it's the total opposite in outdoor or field lacrosse where we have a 6x6 net, and our goalie is literally just wearing a chest pad, obviously a jock, and but there's very little equipment. And as a goalie for field lacrosse, we're always looking for the most athletic goalies, goalies that have quick hands, can stop the ball, clear the ball. A goalie can go in field lacrosse, and it happens all the time. Can go right down the field and score. There's no restrictions to that. There's no nothing. Just a risk of losing it, and obviously having an open net at the other end. But they're always, usually very fearless individuals that go in the net that want to take a shot over 100 miles an hour, with very little equipment. But they do most of their saves with their stick, and that's what they're taught. But for a goalie to go, a save percentage of 40%, it is regular. If a goalie has an outstanding game in field lacrosse, they're stopping 60%. Like we were fortunate that Connor had a great game on the weekend and he made 18 saves, which is pretty high for a field lacrosse game.
Yeah, it reminds me, going back to the soccer reference, it reminds me a lot of how they use goalkeepers now in soccer, which is they use them as a secondary player, really. Sweepers became a big deal, being able to play the ball, being able to start the transition game. I'm assuming goalies in like field lacrosse are similar, where they're the ones who are kind of starting the breakouts, or they're doing a lot of passing and a lot of maintaining kind of the defense a little bit.
Yeah, they're the sixth defender, for sure. They're what you'd say, if you want to take another sport reference, they're the quarterback of the defensive crew, right? They're the ones that are telling everybody in front of them, because they can see everything, what is going on, what to do, where to slide. But they're also taking control when they make that save to get the ball to the offensive end, to let the offensive guys do their job, and hopefully put the ball in the back of the other team's net.
That's so interesting to hear. I was going to ask, sort of in comparison to a hockey goalie, as that's a very different position, obviously, but how the importance of it shifts. But clearly, the lacrosse goalie in field is like immeasurably important and has many different roles than just stop the ball by any means possible. It's a lot more. His mind's in the game, or their mind's in the game, and his stick is in the game.
Yeah, for sure. And it's probably one of the most active goaltenders in any sport that I've ever seen or watched. As they are part of the game, right? They can get a ground ball. They can check somebody. They're regularly out of the cage, or their crease, and they're part of the game. It's a fun aspect of our game to see them being that, and I think it helps goalies want to be goalies, because they can do so much more than just stand in between the pipes and get peppered at, right? So that's what helps them get in the net and keep them in the net. But obviously, there's always that goalie mindset that they just want to be in the net, and that's what they love. And we're lucky we have four individuals at our school that like to do that every Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday for practice, and they want to take those shots, and usually they don't have enough and they want more. So kudos to those guys.
Yeah, one of the things on the Lakers website is when you go on the athletics website, there's a men's women section, there's a women's section, and then lacrosse is on this other section. And I wanted to talk quickly about, I guess, women in the game of lacrosse. I'm assuming that there's no rules against it being men only. It doesn't seem like it's a men's league, but I don't know if you can talk a little bit about women players at all, or their influence on the game.
Yeah, for sure. So there's huge. So we'll start with box lacrosse. There's women's and men's box lacrosse. Obviously, it's unisex at the men's level, but most of the time, just due to you know bigger, stronger, faster men, girls tend to go, as they'll play when they're younger, but they'll go and play in the women's leagues, which is growing. As we had our first women's box world championships last summer, which is exciting. Unfortunately, Canada got a silver in that. But we also, in the field game or the outdoor game, it's very different. Women's lacrosse doesn't wear any equipment. All they do is have goggles to protect their eyes. Their sticks have no pockets. So it's the two very, very unique sports. I've coached both. I'm lucky enough that my daughter played at a high level, and I coached her for her last 2 years of minor lacrosse. Now she has left and she's playing Division II lacrosse down in the States, the University of Montevallo in Alabama. But you tend to get, as you get older, men will stay in the men's game and women will tend to play in the women's game. But if anything, the women's game, if you have a chance to see a high level women's game, it's super fast. It's even faster than ours because there's no hitting, but they have no pockets in their sticks. So it's very unique, different, fast, exciting. Love to coach that, but I love to coach the men as well.
How does the pocket make? Because again, don't know much about lacrosse. So when you talk about the pocket, does that change? I'm assuming it changes how fast the ball comes out of the stick.
Yeah, it's well, a lot of it's just on technique and athlete. You know what I mean? But the bigger thing with a pocket in the stick is it got hold. So when I get cross checked or hit, the ball's not going to come out. But in the women's game, to have a competitive advantage for the defense to be able to get the ball away from somebody they're defending, that they can't have a pocket because they wouldn't be able to hold it. So there's a lot of stick checks, a lot of scary movements with the sticks near the heads and stuff like that, which they try to avoid. But that's the biggest thing is the hold in the stick where the ball won't come out when they're checked.
Do you have any other lacrosse bit? Because I want to move on to something a little bit different. But do you have any lacrosse based questions left? Or?
Not at the moment.
I think we're pretty well educated at this point. Let's shift the conversation as we start to wind down a little bit more towards you and your background a little bit. So as you said, you've been coaching the Nipissing team for quite a few years through the COVID years and everything like that. What got you into sport, into lacrosse specifically, and what got you kind of into that coaching?
So I guess lacrosse itself, I came from a baseball family, played baseball till I was 12, but I was a high level hockey player as well. And I grew up in St. Catharines, Ontario, which is a lacrosse hotbed. And I had just buddies on my hockey team that were lacrosse guys. I was kind of getting bored, I'll be honest, with baseball. And I wanted to try this new sport that some of my buddies were playing. So I started playing when I was 12 or 13 and loved it. Fell in love with it. It's one of those things is a sport, and you can talk to anybody that goes into lacrosse. There's something different about it. It's not a big, well-known sport, but when you play it and you're in a culture or a family or a team, it's that you're in your lax family. And it's one of those sports that just kind of takes over your life. And it took over mine. I started coaching when I was 17 in St. Catharines. I was, I coached a U15 team, so kids that are just a couple years younger than me, and then just kind of got the passion. And always have coached mostly field lacrosse, as I just had a niche and just loved the strategy in field lacrosse compared to box. And just been coaching ever since. And then started to get at high levels as I got a little bit older. Started coaching with Team Ontario. I've been lucky enough to be on a couple of Team Canada benches at events. And now I coach with the Nipissing in Cluflo, which is pretty high level in Canada, but then also the national program development team with Team Canada.
Yeah, maybe talk a little bit about we talked a little bit about nationals, but just how I guess the national team has grown from the time you've been involved, and as you said, they're going to the Olympics, which is incredibly exciting. And just talk maybe a little bit about the national program and your experience with it.
So it's high level players. We were lucky enough that our U20 national team just a couple weeks ago won their first ever World Championships. We took down the powerhouse USA, who's won that tournament every year since it's been going. But the good thing with Canada is we're always one of the top two, women's and men. So it's always us and US that battle it out at the national program. But To just be able to work and practice and be part of the camps for the national program. You just learn so much from your other coaches, but just the passion of a Canadian athlete that wants to represent their country at a world championships, their desire, their drive, is just infectious to be around. You learn so much, and at that level, it's hard not to put all your work and effort into it, and help see these young men become a members of the team, but also see them as grow as young men and dads and all that stuff as they go through. I still talk to a lot of the kids that I've coached before, and when it's always great when you see them giving back to the game and coaching, or they still refer to you as coach, and that's what kind of keeps me going all the time.
I really like that piece about coaching, especially the passion piece. My dad coaches a lot of sports where he is able, and I have jumped in on that boat and started coaching minor girls softball and youth badminton. But I want to talk about the passion. How does that come out on the lacrosse field? Is it similar to football, where it's very passionate, very vocal, or you said it was the gentleman's sport on the field? How do you display that?
I think it's your coaching style, right? There's a lot of coaches that are yellers and screamers. I'm not known as a quiet human being, but I'm just loud. I just have a loud voice because I coach outdoors. So I'm always talking loud, but I'm more, I call myself a player coach, right? I'm more there for the guys. I'm going to get hard on somebody if I know I can get a little bit more out of them, right? But I'm not a guy that's putting them on the line and telling them to run and all that. Is like I'm here to share what I can with any athlete that I'm coaching, to make them better. If they want to be the best they can at a sport, they want to grow, they want to learn, they want to be a student of the game. I think I'm the guy that helps them with that, right? And that's how I do it, and I still do that myself, right? Working in these high end programs, even talking at practice the other night is as we need to be better, right? We had a great game on Sunday. We took down one of the top teams, but at the same point, that's game one, right? We still got 9 games to go, and our goal is to improve on the things we did wrong, right? And that's what we're gonna do, and I'm gonna help them and educate them and share what I have as a coach in this sport to get the best out of them.
Absolutely, it's a balance between being broad coach and coaching everybody, the younger and the older guys, and then going player to player and ensuring that they're motivated and playing well and continually improving.
Yeah, and it doesn't matter. I always say to anybody that I'm, uh, mentoring or working with, right? At any age, a high five goes far, right? The more positive, it's cliche to say, but the more fun somebody has playing the sport, I think the more enjoyable it's going to be for them at every age. That's going from men to 5-year-olds. It's probably one of my favorite ages to coach, kind of thing.
So, very last question before we let you go. I was just thinking about this as you were talking about your coaching career a bit. For the people who are like finishing off their athletic journey and want to transition into coaching, what advice would you give them to do that? The resources, maybe, especially maybe at the higher levels when we talk about like OUA or even some of the national levels. Just any advice you'd have for those people.
Yeah, like definitely, like at any level. There's a great coaching course at Nipissing that I'm part of, like a coaches panel every year, and we share lots of tidbits like this. But it's definitely get involved, right? And that's the biggest thing is you got to find, and I think if you want to be a good coach, you have to be passionate about that sport. Right. If you're not passionate about that sport, maybe it's not worth coaching, because you have to elude that passion onto your athletes to help them be better, but also for them to return. Right. If you coach a group of athletes, young athletes, and they come back the next year, you did your job. Right. And that's the biggest thing is we have to maintain these athletes in the sport. At the younger ages, also find a mentor. Like I mentor a lot of younger lacrosse coaches. I have mentors that I still talk to all the time about the game and try to improve. And then the biggest thing is don't be afraid to, reach out to a team, to join as a volunteer coach. Just being even if you came to one of my practices, you're a fly in the wall just to learn. But I did that for Team Ontario. I just threw it out there to the coach at the time. I said, "Hey, this is what I think I want to do. How do I get involved?" And he took me in right away. I was assistant coach for 2 years, and then I ended up being the head coach for 7. So it's about putting yourself in there. But the biggest thing to be the best coach you can be is you have to be a student of the game. Never stop learning, because the game doesn't stop changing, right? And if you get stuck in your old ways as a coach, the game might pass you by, and then your competitive advantage for those teams you're coaching might be lost. So always change. Don't get stuck in your ways, and listen to your athletes as much as you do your assistant coaches and your mentors, right? And just be and again, it just comes down to being a great person, I believe.
Cool. Well, we're going to be covering probably more lacrosse. I think your next game's on the 20th, I believe, right? Not this weekend, but the following Saturday.
Correct. We're off. Yeah, we're off this weekend. And then we're home against our rival, Laurentian. Obviously the 705 Cup and everything that comes with, the Sudbury North Bay connection. And that's also homecoming weekend. So you think the crowd was pretty exciting on Sunday. It might be double on the next Saturday.
I'm going to try to make it out there, get some footage, maybe grab a player interview. We'll see what's happening after the game. But thank you, Jason, so much for joining us, and good luck for the rest of the season.
Amazing. Thank you. And thank you for bringing lacrosse into your broadcast and helping your listeners, and I guess the town of North Bay, also trying to, teach them the game and what we have to watch.
Yeah, I just need to figure out how the penalties work, because there was a lot of flags flying and I had no idea what was going on, but people were yelling and stuff, and I'm like, oh, that must be something.
All excitement, right? Just adds to it.
Absolutely. Well, that's been another Echo Sportscast Spotlight. I'm Ben Sargent.
I'm Jackson Bull.
Thank you for listening. Don't forget to like, share, and comment, and go out to the next lacrosse game that's going to be near you.